So that was pretty smooth, right? You guys probably thought we shot everything with a gimbal. No, everything you saw was shot handheld. And since I'm a noob with handheld videography, I've decided to bring over my pal over here to teach you guys a few tricks about handheld videography.
Hey guys, I'm Sydney Chan.
Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Why don't you tell them a little bit more about how you got started?
I actually started off with a Canon 600D. It was an entry-level Canon. That was before I upgraded to the current Canon 60. It's a full-frame camera.
Yep.
But back then, we were all just a bunch of students and we didn't really have much money to buy all these fancy gears.
So you probably developed some techniques to work around the fact that you didn't have a Steadicam or a 3-axis gimbal or slider, all that stuff. I started with the A7S. Back then, one of the priciest cameras you can get that was mirrorless.
Spoiled.
And then I went and get a gimbal because I wanted to get smooth footages. I didn't even have the patience to learn the Steadicam. So I didn't actually learn how to do handheld videography. Today we're gonna just let Sydney here demonstrate some of the techniques that has helped him over the years. And also we test out some new techniques that we see online.
I'm not an expert on anything. We're just figuring things out as we go along.
He's not an expert, he's an expert. Let's get cracking. So firstly, let's talk about camera in-body stabilization, which has quickly become the most sought after and best features of the new mirrorless cameras, except for the Canon EOS R. So what do you think about that, Sid, like in terms of the new IBIS versus what you guys had back then?
Most of the time, we relied a lot on whether or not the lens itself has stabilization.
And it was designed more for photography,
But it actually did help for video as well.
I believe that IBIS is still a more superior technology because it has 5-axis stabilization instead of what was actually possible within the lens itself, I assume. Number 2, go big or go home. Basically, with the new mirrorless cameras that are more compact and small, I find that they are a little bit more difficult to grip. So I've decided to get a cage for it so that I can get more steady footages while I move around, and I don't feel like I'm fighting the lens. When I put on more heavier lenses, they tend to go whoop.
A mentor of mine told me back then, the heavier it is, it actually feels more stable. It also helps that the cage sort of protects the camera.
Moving on to tips number 3, go wide.
I think the general idea is that the wider you shoot, the less noticeable the shake. I'm just gonna turn off the stabilizer for this lens.
And then point it at Simon.
So you can sort of see a bit of the shake on the sides.
But not as noticeable.
But not as noticeable if I zoomed in. You can see that it's a lot more
noticeable.
Personally, I don't like wide
Aesthetic
angles.
choice.
Wide angles tend to have a bit of distortion.
One of the reasons why a lot of vloggers and stuff use wide-angle lenses is because they can get really close to the camera, which is like this, and have a shotgun up there and get decently good audio. Number 4, it's all about your hands.
Actually, there's not many different ways you can hold the camera, but
I mean, you can do this if you want. Yo, I'm gangsta.
I mean, the most basic thing you can do is just hold it like that, hold it properly.
With a steady grip.
When you put your hands on the lens, like let the lens rest on your hand like this.
On the lens. You get to maneuver all the rings that are on the lens. It could be an aperture ring, could be a zoom ring, could also be a focus ring, which is the most common one that you would get with lenses.
And then you also want to hold it close to your body.
Your camera tends to be one with your body.
So when you do those sways or you do those movements, at least the shake is not so
noticeable.
At least it feels more natural.
You can use a strap, right? Magically now he has a strap on. So by pushing the camera right out into the open, kind of create 3 points of contact with the camera, 2 points with the camera on the both sides with your hands or even on the lens. And the third point is on the neck, so that you kind of create this magical human fluid head that works very well and works wonders when you do panning and tilting, because it's a very rigid movement. However, I noticed when you use this technique to do like follow walking shots, it doesn't work as well, because this rigidity on your upper body as well as the strap kind of makes it easier for your movement from the hips because of your walking to transfer up and down. You kind of feel like a Pontiana. Number 5, it's all in the hips.
It's hypnotizing.
Wow.
It's very difficult to describe, but what I do is I crouch a little bit.
Yeah.
I relax my knees and I straighten my body and I hold the camera close to me.
It's kind of like a Kung Fu Tai Chi pose, don't it?
I sort of sway left and right, step left and right like this.
So you transfer your weight steadily from one feet to the other without this jarring kind of...
And while my hands are maintaining that same horizontal level, So that's when I can get my slider shots or my parallax shots. That's how I cheat. There's always a limitation to how much you can slide or do parallax, because if I want to go further, I would actually like tip over, and at least you would have a few seconds of usable footage.
Number 6, slow motion.
The idea of slow-mo is so that every tiny little jerk in the camera will sort of look like a mini sway.
Yeah, it is. It makes it kind of like smooth and buttery.
But slow-mo is not for everyone. Not everyone has access to good slow-mo.
You would use slow-mo for very specific purposes. For instance, you want to try to get B-roll in and out. If you're a wedding videographer or whatever, and you have like just a very short amount of time to get in, to get the B-roll you want and get out, then it's very good because it extends essentially. If you're shooting in 100 frames, like the A6500, you essentially get 4 times the footage when you throw it into a 25p timeline. If you shoot like 4 seconds, you have like 16 seconds of B-roll right there. The only problem you have with slow-mo is that when you need the audio in the footage, let's say dialogue, then you can't really use that. Number 7, stabilize in post. So we're talking about WAP stabilizer in Premiere Pro as well as After Effects, and there's definitely the equivalent in Final Cut Pro as well, I think.
Yeah, it's actually not something that I would
rely on, right?
There's always this habit about fixing it in post. I don't like the fact that it crops in your image.
If you shoot a little bit wider, then you have a little bit more leeway for the stabilization in post.
Your footage might seem a little bit more wobbly than normal. I mean, it's there to assist.
Yeah, try to get it right in
first
camera,
time.
During the recording, capturing phase. You don't want to gamble and then take home the footage and WAP stabilize it. It's not actually helping. Bonus tip for you guys. So this is more like an aesthetic choice than anything else. If you want to introduce some movement in your shot, sometimes getting the subject or the object to move is a better choice than actually you moving yourself.
If there is movement in the shot itself,
the subject,
you would actually not notice the shakiness as much.
So we're gonna show you the end results of our little adventure over at my house. Huge shout out to Cassandra and
Huge shout out to
Daryl.
Cassandra and Daryl.
Let us know what you guys think about this sequence, right?
Yeah. Aside from being a convenience, I feel that handheld has a certain kind of aesthetic to it. In some good examples, it makes the scene look more real.
A raw, kind of
raw,
natural look.
Especially action documentaries where a lot of things are happening.
Not even just documentaries, right? We're talking about Children of Men where there's this long sequence that's shot handheld where Clive was going through this war-torn street. That was amazing. What I personally don't like is when I look at examples like Man of Steel and they do it so excessively, I kind of feel like I'm having an epilepsy because, you know, it is more versatile than most techniques.
There's always a purpose for it. It's really convenient and you can get to
That is true.
spaces.
That is true. I went with a gimbal. Halfway through of the day, I already felt really tired because I had to hold the gimbal like that. It was extremely tiring. So in conclusion, we can both agree that, you know, every different technique in videography or filmmaking has a place depending on the situation, and you should always be mindful with the story you're telling and how you want to tell it. If you thought this video was awesome, please give us a like and subscribe. A huge shout out to Cassandra Liu, Daryl Chong, and also Sydney Chan over here for being here and throwing us all these tips and tricks so that we can shoot handheld videography better. So leave a comment down below if you have any questions about handheld videography, and we'll try our best to kind of answer you guys and have a nice discussion in the comment section below. And we'll see you in the next one.